waves of wrath are stored. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on.
I have seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. They have builded him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. Once in a while, the stars line up and you can't ignore it. Once in a while, events happen that are so filled with profundity that you cannot just ignore it. There are times when the God of heaven literally screams through symbology, through numbers, through nature, and says, pay attention to what's going on. We remember when that happened on 9/11 in 2000. We heard a scream to wake us up. Well, today the Twin Towers have fallen again on 4/21/25. Twin Towers have fallen again. No, not brick and mortar, not physically, but symbolically. I want to talk to you about those Twin Towers. One is Pope Francis, the Bishop of the Church of Rome, and Klaus Schwab, the Bishop, if you will, of the world's banking systems. Now, Babylon is two-sided. Anytime you study about Babylon, and I'm teaching you right now about the death of two Babylons. Anytime you study about Babylon, you will always find two components: the spiritual, the religious side, and the financial side. For indeed, both are two heads of the same monster. Now, before I get started with this presentation today, I do want to wish my condolences to all faithful Catholic friends of mine and believers around the world. Some of the greatest people in the world that you will ever meet are devout Catholics. I love Catholic people, just like I love all people. However, I love Democrats. I love liberals. But I have a duty to speak against the institutions that we don't love. And today, I want you to notice the Twin Towers, the two sides of Babylon that is falling. When you read the book of Revelation, you're going to find out these words: Babylon is falling. Babylon is in a continual fall. When you begin to see the falling of Babylon, take note of that, because that precedes the coming of the Lord. Now, just before the falling of Babylon, there will be a voice of Elijah that will rise up before that fall to declare Babylon is falling. My new Substack blog is out right now for those of you that are subscribers to my Substack blog. It is out. You can go and get that every day. You get the tomorrow's news today. I'll show it to you. There it is on Substack. Look for Professor Toto. If you have not subscribed, go to Substack at Professor Toto and subscribe today. And you will get all of our articles every day there. So please make sure you're subscribed to that article. Two monumental figures have departed the world stage. Together, interestingly enough. There's a lot of interesting things about this. We're going to talk about that. Why don't you go ahead and hit the share button? Hit that love button. Get us up in the algorithm, especially if you're on YouTube. YouTube will recommend this video if you do your part. Comments and loves and shares gets us up, which gets our message out. So let's talk today in detail. By the way, my show is tomorrow night, every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central. If you're watching me right now, you don't know who I am. They call me Professor Toto. That is my stage name. My real name is Pastor Shane Vaughn. I fulfill two roles, political and religious. Today, I'm bringing them both together because today is a pivotal day in both worlds, religion, politics, finances. And so if you are not a subscriber to us on YouTube, please go now at Real Professor Toto. And you can watch our live show every Tuesday night at 7 Central. I will be discussing this in more detail tomorrow night at 7. But let's talk about Klaus Schwab and Pope Francis. Their exit is simultaneous. Ironically, the spiritual leader of Babylon, and when we say Babylon, that simply means confusion, the religion of confusion, the financial system of confusion. Babylon is confusion. It's when everything is right, instead of right side up, upside down. And these two men represent that confusion to God's people and to the world financial system. Their departure in unison gives us a chilling prophetic pause. Today is the day. Let me see, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Wow. Let me make sure I have today's date numbers correct. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Absolutely. Today is a 7. The number of today is a 7-day, which is the signature of Yahweh. So it's interesting. There's too many things lining up. It's happening at the Easter celebration, the age of the pontiff, 88. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And then both of them leaving together. It is time for you to wake up and take note of this pivotal moment that is happening. Now remember, one is spiritual, one is financial. As the dawn broke today, Pope Francis II drew his final breath, and we truly wish our condolences to those that love him and their church. We sympathize with the loss of your leader today. I pray that better days are ahead for you, and you can return to a voice of morality in the Catholic Church. A stark and sudden departure happened just hours after the Easter celebration at St. Peter's Basilica, a 12-year reign. There's another number that strikes me as that prophetic sense kicks in. He was on the throne, entrada, if you will, for 12 years on the throne, so-called, which we know better, of St. Peter. Now, Pope Francis stood in direct contradiction to his predecessor, the staunchly conservative Benedict XVI. Now, the entire imposition of the Francis reign was always troubling to me, as it just never seemed right. It never fit well, especially with Pope Benedict still being alive during that reign of Pope Francis. So that there in itself was troubling. Now, I want to say something to all of you. I know, and you know, my stance against Catholic teachings, but I am never unable to distinguish my disdain for doctrine over love for people. And the Catholic people have lost their leader today. And I pray for them today because this leader hijacked their church. And it was already bad enough, in my opinion, but then bad became much worse under Pope Francis. Francis took the Catholic Church. One thing I must say about the Catholic Church, I disagree with it completely. The doctrines, the structure, the teachings, the history. However, we must give credit where credit is due. They always held to conservatism in the Catholic Church, especially in its recent decades. And no matter what you thought about them, they held on to the voice of morality, even if they were not moral themselves. You could depend on them to defend the nuclear family, straight lifestyle, until Pope Francis. And he came and took the Catholic Church sharply leftward, passionately advocating progressive causes. He embraced social justice. He vigorously championed climate change activism. He supported LGBTQ plus outreach. He boldly initiated dialogues with Islam. He openly rebuked nationalism and nationalistic leaders, notably clashing with President Donald Trump over the U.S.-Mexico border wall. So Francis took a church that was already on the precipice and tried to pull them over the edge completely, even losing their conservative bulwark defense. It was truly a horrible reign, if I must say so myself. Now, what will happen? All eyes for the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, will turn to Rome. Interestingly enough, all of the news cycles, get ready. Everything else that's happening in the world will disappear. You probably will no longer hear about El Guadalupe over in the prison in El Salvador. Everything will turn to Rome. A papal conclave will convene in about 2 weeks, I believe, in early May. All of the cardinals will come together to determine the church's next shepherd. And I can say that there is an appetite to return to conservatism. It is my hope and prayer that that will be the case, that there will return to conservatism, and there is a possibility in the returning to the conservatism in the Catholic Church. They may very well do what America did when Obama came with his liberalism to the extreme. They may very well vote in a pontiff to the extreme of Francis, and that may be a prophetic marker that we need to watch for, because according to Bible prophecy, the end time pope will be militaristic in persecuting heresy and things of that nature. So it's an interesting time. Now, let's change gears. Let's go to the other tower, the death of financial Babylon. Klaus Schwab steps down at the moment that the Pope of Rome steps down from the World Economic Forum, an empire that he meticulously built with his own hands and reigned over it. Are you ready? For half a century. This is a day of great tumult, change in our world. Schwab's influence was formidable, and his departure signals a shift with potentially global ramifications. Now, let's talk about Schwab for a minute, for those of you that may not know a lot about him. His legacy will rest heavily on a very controversial ideology that he held to called stakeholder capitalism, which is a mask for a deep, dark economic reality. Now, many analysts argue that Schwab's vision aligns with corporate socialism or communist capitalism. And that echoes a chilling parallel to the regimes of Nazi Germany, fascist Italy, and Peronist Argentina. Intriguingly enough, that's exactly where Pope Francis himself was an advocate of. He was an advocate of Schwab's economic model. Now, think about this. The voice that propelled Schwab's ideas died today, and the man that created the ideas died today. Both world, spiritual and financial influence. Now, let me explain Charles Schwab to you. His ideology traces back through his own family history. His father, Eugene Schwab, operated within Nazi Germany's economic machinery, directing Esker Wise, a firm notorious for slave labor and atomic weapons that was developed under Hitler. In a twisted historical echo, Klaus Schwab's stakeholder capitalism appears as an insidious revival of an economic conquest his father helped to initiate under Nazi rule, but never completed. Under Schwab's stewardship, the World Economic Forum became a potent vehicle for spreading technocratic control, silently conquering Europe through economics instead of warfare. With his resignation today, a significant chapter is closing, leaving the future of global economic governance uncertain. And you know what happens when global economies become uncertain. Now, there will be a man by the name of Peter Brabeck Letmath, an Austrian businessman, that will temporarily fill the chair of Schwab until a successor can be chosen. So now all eyes are on the successor. The world anxiously awaits this new technocratic kingmaker, because that's what Schwab was, a kingmaker. Now, let's dive a little deeper into the prophetic insight of this day. Now, for those of us that believe that Yahweh, that's the name of your God, is the creator of all things, and he is involved in lining everything up for the last days. We believe that the heart of the king is in the hand of Yahweh, and that he moves chess pieces out of the way and moves them in to prepare for that great global gathering of the end time harvest. So, with that in mind, let's look at an intriguing prophetic layer that comes into view, a symbol yesterday at this changing of the guard over the whole world. The proxy of Donald John Trump shows up as a last witness to the life of Pope Francis. Now, when someone sends their proxy, it is them going themselves. So, in truth, Donald Trump was there as one of the final witnesses of this chapter, not in his person, but in his proxy, JD Vance. This is not a coincidence. There is something pivotal in this triumvirate of the United States of America and these two leaders of Babylon that have fallen, and the next generation represented in JD Vance. And now, as our eagle eyes of the Spirit look deeper, we find out that the Pope passed away at the age of 88 on Easter Sunday, if you will, shortly thereafter. Now, we know that 8 in God's numbering system is the number or the numerical symbol of new beginnings. 8 is also the number of eternity, infinity. It is a fat number, if you will, because of its encompassing of time. It's filled up. In other words, it is the fullness of time, representing eternity, the new beginning. Now, there's also another prophetic number that we need to look at here. Not only do we have 88, but if you add 8 plus 8, you get 16. If you add 1 plus 6, that brings you to 7, which would be the total sum of these two 8s, which is interesting to me because 7 represents completion. So in one number, we not only have the end, the completion, but we also have the beginning, which means to me that the death of Pope Francis is signaling, whomever the next pope is, that Francis's reign was the bringing in of a complete cycle, which will make way for a new beginning and the dawn of something fresh after the fullness of time, meaning that this death is bringing what's coming next. Whoever is next will carry an end of a cycle and a new beginning in their reign. The departure of Pope Francis signals more than the closing of an era. When you pair it with the resignation of Klaus Schwab, a deep whisper begins to call out to deep, to echo through the spiritual realm. Those that have ears, let them hear what the Spirit is saying to the church. The twin towers have fallen, and this is not coincidence. It signifies that these men were providential placeholders. They were holding something in place so that it would not fall yet. Their departure is making way for the final phase of a very prophetic cycle. And as every completion is but a womb of a new beginning, we stand at the threshold of what could be the next great turning point for mankind in human history. A golden age, not born from a man's ambition, but from heaven's design, the coming kingdom of Yahweh on planet Earth. This anticipated new beginning suggests that the next pope will be markedly different than Francis. And while it may look like a good thing on the outside, one wonders how militaristic this next pope could be to returning the church to conservatism, militarism. Only time will unveil that, but we are watching closely. Today, April the 21st, 2025, witnessed the simultaneous fall of two symbolic Babylons, one spiritual, one financial. Both Pope Francis II and Klaus Schwab leave behind legacies that irrevocably shaped our modern world. Their deaths signaling perhaps the end of an era and the shadowy dawn of another. The world is standing on a precipice today. The question lingers, could these departures be more than coincidence? Or are we glimpsing a deeper prophetic orchestration at work? I declare to the world today with a prophetic voice, Babylon is falling. Come out of her, my people. Thank you for watching. God bless you, America. I'll see you tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Central. You don't want to miss any episode of The Toto Show. Have a great day. I ask not for riches. I ask not for fame. I ask for the nation in Jesus' name. I ask for America. I call her by name. I present her to the Father in Jesus' name. I ask for America. I call her by name. I present her to the Father in Jesus' name. With the congregation sing, I ask for America. I